Hello and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. If you're a focused learner looking to cut through all the noise around rooftop solar investments in India, well, you're in exactly the right place. Lately, solar is literally all anyone can talk about. You look around your neighborhood and panels are popping up on every other roof. But with all that hype comes a ton of confusion, misinformation, and frankly, some really costly errors. So today, we're going to break down the complex data and turn it into clear, actionable insights. All right, let's dive right into this.
If you talk to folks around town, you usually hear two extreme narratives. On one side, people treat solar like an absolute superhero. They'll tell you their bills just vanished instantly and it's basically magic. But then, on the flip side, you've got the skeptics treating solar like a villain, claiming it's a total scam and a massive waste of money. Now, here is the exact trap we fall into. The reality, it's far more nuanced. Solar is neither a superhero nor a villain. It is a financial instrument. And just like any financial asset, if you structure it correctly, the returns are incredibly strong. Structure it poorly, and you won't even see half of your expected benefits.
Just to give you a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about, consider this staggering number. India's untapped rooftop solar potential is estimated to be over 600 gigawatts. That is a colossal amount of clean, localized energy just sitting there, waiting to be harvested straight from our own roofs.
But then, we have to look at the reality. 19 gigawatts. That is the actual installed capacity currently sitting on Indian rooftops today. It is literally just a fraction of what's possible.
So it naturally begs the question, right? Why is there such a massive gap? Why aren't more of us capitalizing on this? Well, the answer is that buyers are making critical, totally avoidable mistakes during the purchasing process. And in the solar world, one mistake doesn't just sting today. Oh no, it means your system will yield mediocre returns for the next 25 years, when it could have been giving you fantastic, compounding financial benefits. To bridge that gap and really protect your investment, here's our roadmap for today. 1. The rooftop solar reality. 2. Sizing, data over guesswork. 3. Price versus long-term value. 4. Execution and battery logic. 5. Policies and subsidies. And finally, 6. Future-proofing.
Okay, let's jump straight into part 1, the rooftop solar reality.
Let's ground this in the foundational economics of why we even consider solar power in the first place. Honestly, the pure financial logic here is just so compelling. Look at electricity inflation in India. It averages 6 to 8% every single year. Your fixed cost of living is always creeping up. Meanwhile, the cost of solar panels, that's plummeted by 75 to 85% over the last decade. Add in government subsidies, which can hand you up to 78,000 rupees for a 3-kilowatt system, and the math becomes highly, highly attractive. You're looking at a system that pays for itself in just 4 to 6 years, but it keeps churning out electricity for 20 to 25 years. It sounds absolutely perfect, right? But here's the catch. Actually getting these numbers in real life means you have to avoid the next 5 mistakes.
Which brings us to part 2, sizing, data over guesswork.
The very first major mistake people make is relying on a vendor's guess instead of their own hard data. They'll ask the salesperson, hey, how many kilowatts should I install? And just roll with the gut feeling. But let's look at the difference between two consumer profiles here. Say you have low usage, but you get sweet-talked into a massive 3-kilowatt system. You're producing way more than you use. And because cash settlement rules vary so wildly from state to state, your money just ends up tied up in a totally underutilized asset. On the flip side, if you have high usage but you undersize your system just to save a quick buck up front, you're still heavily reliant on the grid and your potential savings are effectively chopped in half. I love this quote because it brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy we need here. Solar is not a t-shirt where buying a size larger works. You simply can't just size up for comfort. Solar is a precise financial machine built around your exact consumption. To get the size right, you literally have to pull out your electricity bills for the last 12 months, find your true average consumption, and let the data make the decision. Guesswork in solar? Yeah, it only leads to regret. Let's move on to part 3, price versus long-term value. It is incredibly easy to fall into the classic trap of chasing the lowest upfront quote. In today's solar market, vendors will aggressively undercut each other all day long. One guy quotes 3 lakhs, the next says 2.6, and a third promises 2.3 lakhs. But I want you to stretch your vision out and consider a 25-year timeline. The price you pay in year 1, that's just the upfront number. If you buy the absolute cheapest system, what happens in years 7 to 10? That is typically when your inverter, which is basically the brain of your entire system, needs replacing. Did that bargain basement quote include a solid warranty on the inverter? And let's look all the way out to year 25. Panels have a degradation rate, usually dropping about 0.5 to 0.8% of their efficiency every single year. A cheap panel degrades so much faster, completely destroying your generation capacity over 2 decades. It's exactly like buying a car, but failing to check what the maintenance costs are or if the tires are going to fall off. Smart investors look way past that initial sticker discount. They look at long-term performance, warranties, and dependable post-installation service. Okay, part 4, execution and battery logic. Here we're tackling 2 deeply misunderstood physical components of your system. People will spend weeks comparing panel brands like they're trying to pick out a new smartphone, completely ignoring the people who are actually going to install them. There's a famous line in the construction industry that hits the nail on the head here. Design decides the cost, but execution decides the profit. Remember, solar is a 25-year rooftop project. It is not an LED bulb you just screw in. If your installer uses cheap wiring, loose connectors, or decides to mount your inverter in direct, blazing sunlight, your return on investment is going to die a very slow death. 3 years from now, you'll be scratching your head wondering why your system is barely generating power. The engineering skills of your installer matter infinitely more than whatever brand name is stamped on the glass of the panel.
Then, of course, we have the great battery dilemma. A lot of people just assume going solar means the lights will literally never go out again. Actually, scratch that. A standard grid-tied solar system shuts down during a power cut for safety reasons. So do you buy a battery? Let's look at 2 scenarios. If you live somewhere with rare power cuts and you really just want to lower your monthly bill, buying an expensive lithium battery is just blocked capital. It will drastically stretch out your payback period. But if you face frequent daily power cuts and maybe run a business from home, suddenly, a hybrid system with a battery becomes the gold standard. A battery is essentially the fuel tank of a car. You have to match it to your unique usage patterns, not your emotions.
Now for part 5, policies and subsidies. Time to navigate the bureaucracy. This is unfortunately where so many people trip right at the finish line. The promise of a 78,000 rupee subsidy gets everyone really excited, but you absolutely cannot just book a system blindly. Subsidies demand strict compliance. Step 1. Always initiate your application through the official PM Suryagar portal. Step 2. Ensure you're using a registered vendor recognized by the platform. Step 3. Make sure your DISCOM approval and documentation are absolutely flawless. Bypassing these steps and using unregistered intermediaries is pretty much the quickest way to get your funds permanently stuck and invite years of technical headaches into your life. We also need to clear up a massive misconception right now. Have you ever heard the phrase zero bill? Yeah, it is largely a marketing myth. In reality, your electricity bill is split into energy charges and fixed charges. Solar only reduces your energy charges. Those fixed structural charges, they remain. Furthermore, net metering rules, like whether your surplus energy is credited monthly, yearly, or carried forward, vary significantly from state to state. So what's the takeaway here? Always model your financial returns based on conservative savings estimates mapped to your specific state's rules. Never base it on wildly optimistic marketing pitches.
And finally, part 6, future-proofing and mindset. Failing to plan for the future is perhaps the most silent, sneaky mistake of them all. And I think this analogy sums it up perfectly. You wouldn't build a single-story house without at least calculating the column strength for future floors, right? You plan for expansion. Yet, every day, people design solar systems based strictly on what they consumed yesterday. But think about how life actually works. Over the next 2 decades, your energy needs are going to explode. You might add more air conditioners because, let's face it, Indian summers aren't getting any cooler. You're very likely going to buy an electric vehicle that needs charging at home. Your family might grow. And we all know teenagers never remember to turn off the lights. If you don't build an expandable architecture today, upgrading later is a total nightmare. You're going to hit inverter capacity limits, clash with your roof layout, and face massive rewiring costs. A 25-year asset fundamentally requires a whole lot more than a 5-year vision. You need to design a system today that actively leaves room for tomorrow's growth. Ultimately, the biggest mistake in rooftop solar has nothing to do with technology. It's entirely about psychology. If you treat solar like an off-the-shelf household appliance, like you're just buying a TV or a backup generator, you will obsess over nothing but the upfront price. But if you shift your mindset and treat it as a 25-year financial infrastructure asset, you evaluate everything differently. You hedge against decades of electricity inflation, you value robust engineering, and you protect your long-term margins.
Which leaves us with this final vital question. Are you ready to treat your roof like a 25-year power plant? Disciplined thinking is what actually creates long-term, predictable savings. I really hope this explainer has given you the clarity to go out there, look at your consumption data, demand flawless execution, and plan your rooftop real estate with a true investor's mindset. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep learning, stay focused, and I will see you in the next explainer.